Hi guys. So what I want to do right now is go over the answers for the homework assignment that I gave you last week. So on this slide, you will see that you were tasked with finding the importance or the significance of 5 different terms and then responding to 7 different questions in complete sentences. So let's go over the terms first. All right, A is Lech Walesa. That guy is a Polish electrician that led the Solidarity movement in Poland, and he later became the president after removal of communist influence from the Soviet Union. B. The Velvet Revolution. That is the name given to the removal of Soviet influence in Czechoslovakia. It is called the Velvet Revolution because it is so peaceful and there is no bloodshed. All right, C, the fall of the Berlin Wall. This event is significant because the fall of the Berlin Wall basically signifies or symbolizes the collapse of Soviet influence throughout Eastern Europe. D, glasnost. This means opening, and it refers to the opening of the Soviet Union, meaning that censorship was lifted, and so people were able to criticize the government if they wanted to. News outlets were no longer censored. The news wasn't censored like newspapers, so people could do more when it comes to freedom of speech. And then E, Perestroika. This is the restructuring of the Soviet government. Now, there's a lot that goes under the category of perestroika, but some of the items that we think are the most important would have to do with the amount of power that was given to locals when it came to agriculture and manufacturing. So they decentralized many aspects of their economy. And the important ones that we would focus on would be agriculture and manufacturing, because those are 2 areas where the Soviets were really, really weak. And so Gorbachev was like, all right, I'm going to give locals a little bit more power over these sections of our economy, and then maybe it'll help, boost us up a little bit. So perestroika is just restructuring. All right, the next section is answering the following questions in complete sentences. A complete sentence. Wow. So number 1, how does the strike in Poland demonstrate the Soviet Union's growing weakness? Well, the fact that Poland is having strikes and the Soviet Union is not able to suppress these strikes, and the fact that even more start popping up, shows just how weak the Soviet Union became. If Stalin had been in charge, he would have rolled in and just started killing people. He ruled with an iron fist. But by the time we're hitting the late 70s, early 80s, the Soviet Union is very weak and they're unable to suppress the various demonstrations and riots and strikes that are going on in Eastern Europe. All right, number 2, what issues face the Soviet Union and the surrounding communist countries? Again, by the time we're hitting the late 70s, early 80s, financially speaking, the Soviet Union is not doing very well at all. They are heavily uh, overspending on their military, and they're ignoring other sections of their economy. So their agriculture is not doing so hot, their manufacturing is not doing so hot. They're importing or bringing in most of their food. And throughout Eastern Europe as well, food prices are really high. There's not enough groceries on the shelves. And so people are really, really unhappy. All right, number 3. Who was Mikhail Gorbachev? He's a new leader of the Soviet Union throughout the 80s. He comes into power in 1985. He is trying to save the Soviet Union with policies such as glasnost and perestroika. And what is unfortunate for him is that even though he's trying to help the country, he actually is helping it to unravel. All right, number 4. What was the purpose of the INF Treaty? So number 4 and number 7 are actually related. So number 7 wants to know what was the purpose of the START 2 agreement. So both of the INF Treaty and the START 2 agreement, they kind of show that the United States is willing to step down a little bit from this arms race that we had been involved in, and both of which involve, the United States taking a step back from the use of nuclear missiles. So, whether it means that we're just not testing things up in the air or underwater, or with the START 2 agreement, they are completely destroying, missiles. They are reducing the number that exist. So, both the INF Treaty and the START 2 agreement show that the United States, and of course, these are agreements that we make with the Soviet Union, or Russia later on, it shows that we're willing to, okay, we're going to calm things down with regard to our arms race, with the Soviet Union. We're going to take a step back, and we're not necessarily disarming entirely, but we are going to, chill our grill a little bit. All right, so number 5, how does the opening of the USSR help to quicken its decline? Well, glasnost, as you'll remember, means to open. As soon as the Soviet Union starts to open itself to Western influence and they start opening up their media and they start opening up freedom of speech, people start to complain about what they're unhappy about in the country. And it's just like when you guys are complaining, one person starts and then all of you do, and it just turns into like a giant, complain fest. And so in the USSR, once they start opening up, people start to really go at the government for all of the things that they're unhappy about. And some of the biggest topics that these people were concerned with was the fact that food was extremely expensive and there just wasn't enough. And so when you give people the ability to start voicing their opinion, especially in the USSR in this case, it is going to kind of like awaken these little feelings of like freedom for them. So they're going to, if you give them an inch, they're going to want to take a mile. So if you give them a little freedom, they're going to want lots of freedom. And so that's going to help to quicken its decline. And then number 6, who's Boris Yeltsin? He's the president of Russia. After the USSR collapses, he is the president of Russia, and you guys actually saw a picture of him on the START 2 agreement slide, where he is signing the START 2 agreement with George Bush the first. So that's Big Bush, and then we had Little Bush later in the early 2000s, or Junior Bush, as he's sometimes known. And there you go. Those are the answers to your homework assignment. Keep on doing your homework, guys. Bye.